Pretty much my whole life happened when I was 8. I think I saw my first real horror movie. I went to summer camp. I saw E.T., which was the movie that made me really want to make movies. And my grandmother said, I'm gonna get you a boombox and a cassette tape because you should start listening to music. She's like, what band do you want? And I looked at the TV and the Twisted Sister video for We're Not Gonna Take It was on. And I was captivated by it. And so she bought me this Twisted Sister tape and I listened to it until you couldn't play it anymore. In 4th grade, we had to do a report on the most influential person in our life. And everybody in the class got up and they did their mom or their dad. And I get up there with this doll, Dee Snider, and the makeup and holding the bone. And the teacher said, sit down, you're trying to be funny. I said, I'm not trying to be funny, let me finish. And I did my report and I talked about how this man doesn't do drugs, he's not an alcoholic, he sings songs about self-empowerment and how you can do anything that you set your mind to. He married his first girlfriend, he's a good father, and this is everything that I want to be. And I got my first A+. So it was my last A+ too, I think. And college comes around and I'm at Hofstra University on Long Island and I hear that Dee Snider has a new band playing called Widowmaker that's playing in Providence, Rhode Island. So I get in the car and I drive all the way there and I hand wrote this 4-page letter to him thanking him for what a positive influence he was in my life. And I was the singer in a band at the time and I'm telling him how I'm gonna make movies and all this stuff and it's all because of him.
It was at a real out-of-the-way show. My band Widowmaker was playing. There wasn't a lot of people there, and in those days, it wasn't as it wasn't that typical to have some kid come up all excited before the show with a letter in his hands.
And I got there 4 hours before the concert started, and I pressed myself up against the front door so I could be the first one in, and I could throw this letter on the stage, and just maybe someone would give it to him. And while I'm pressed against the front door, I see this mop of long blonde hair reflected in the glass walking by behind me, and I turn around and it's him. And I'm freaking out. I hand him the letter and he promised me that he would read it, and I go into the show. And when he came out, it's like he's just playing for me. And I'm thinking it's never gonna get better than this.
Don't answer a lot of mail. I get a lot, I try to not read it. The reason I try to not read it is because I feel guilty and I can't, once I've read it, it's reached me and now I have to answer it. And I'm doing so many things, it's very difficult for me to find the time to respond to the mail. Adam took the direct approach and hunted me down like an animal and handed me the letter.
And so 3 months later, I'm at college and my mom calls and she says, you got a letter here, I think you want me to open it. I'm like, who's it from? She said, it's from Dee Snider. I'm like, open it. So the letter said, I touched your life, now you touched mine. Thank you so much for your letter. I've been through so much in my career of doing this, and the fact that you saw through the makeup and the bullshit, really makes it all worth it. And someday I'm gonna see you on the red carpet at some Hollywood bigwig party.
I've written response letters to people very few times. And usually when it's something where they've somehow managed to get me the letter, but also there was something in the letter that said this was somebody who I've really reached out, I've touched in some fashion, and I should respond to them because this is important to them. It's not just, I love you, man, I love you, man, I love you, man. It's something more, and Adam's letter clearly was something more.
And I framed the letter and I put it over my computer where it still is to this day, and whenever I write, I have that letter there. So I get out of college and I get a job directing the worst local cable commercials that you've ever seen. And my very first day working there, they paired me up with Will Barrett. And I looked at him and I said, you're not gonna do this forever, are you? And that was the very first thing I said to him, and he was just like, what are you talking about? I'm like, we could steal this equipment and we could make our own stuff and we could get out of here. And we made this movie called Columbus Day Weekend, where Jason and Michael Myers stalked the same campsite by mistake, and then they're gay for each other. And then I got an email from a guy, he's like, I went to high school with you, I pushed the mail cart here, there's a bunch of agents laughing at a short film, I saw that it was you. He's like, why don't you come out here and meet everybody? So I come out, I didn't really end up meeting with anybody, and I'm standing on the Sunset Strip because I wanted to see the rainbow and the whiskey and all these places I'd heard of, and I'm thinking, Hollywood fucking sucks. And no, I flew all the way out here. Nobody even talked to me, and except for my friend, obviously, it was great. But I'm never coming back here, and I don't want to do this anymore. And I look up, and there's this sign on Tower Records that says, tonight at 7, get twisted with Dee Snider signing copies of his movie Strangeland. I'm like, this is a message from God.
I see someone like Adam who's clearly in distress over how things were going wrong for him. I did what, if you see a person laying on the ground dying and needs mouth-to-mouth, you give him mouth-to-mouth, and this fan needed the equivalent of mouth-to-mouth from Dee.
And I went home and I started making this feature. So Will and I are making coffee and donuts with our friends, 3 lights, a video camera, and pizza boxes for flags.
That's a great idea. That's almost as good an idea as when you bought that Chumbawamba CD and told everyone they were going to be the next Pink Floyd. That was you! Whatever! The last time we gave away $500, my friggin' grandmother won it. God knows what she did with it.
Halfway through shooting coffee and donuts, my boss kind of sat me down. He's like, you can't touch the equipment anymore, it's over. I was like, all right, that's it. I have half a movie shot. I don't know what I'm going to do now. And that night, I went to see Poison. And I'm walking past the backstage area, and I hear all these kids yelling, Dee. So I wave to him, he pulls me over, he says, how's your movie coming? I said, it's not good.
When people reach out to me, if there's some way that I can help them, to encourage them, try and give you a pep talk to pick you up and keep going.
And he said, well, I'll tell you what you're gonna do. You're gonna keep stealing the equipment. I finished Coffee and Donuts for $400. And then after years of struggling with it out here, Hatchet has been shot, and we find out that it got into the Tribeca Film Festival. So I emailed Dee, I told him that I made Hatchet, that we got into the Tribeca Film Festival. It was this big premiere, and I did it, and I made it, and it's all because of him, and I left my contact information.
I picked up the phone, and I called Adam, and it's Dee, and, I said, so, how many people can I put on the list? And he said, you're gonna come to the film festival? I said, we gotta make the prophecy come true.
And this big gray limo pulls up out front, and he gets out with his whole family and walks me down the red carpet to my first premiere. We're actually working on a project together based on that story, and he has his own side to this whole story.
What Adam didn't find out till afterwards was that these were some of the darkest times of my life. I mean, he saw me as a big rock star walking out of the building. I was driving the van from city to city. I was broke. I could not have been in a worse place, struggling to come back from a fall from my band Twisted Sister. So as I'm giving him this pep talk, I think at the same time, oddly, I'm reflecting and reminding myself that I had to keep going too.
He's probably one of my closer friends now. Now we talk all the time.
We bounce ideas off each other. We call each other for counsel, and like I said, we've become friends, and it's pretty cool.
All because my grandmother bought me a Twisted Sister tape when I was 8 years old.